separate engagement which she's got to attend. So could I ask members please to nominate one of their colleagues to act as chair this afternoon, please? Councillor Seaborn?
Yes, Mr. James, I'd like to nominate Councillor Norma Parish to take the chair.
Thank you very much. I see that's seconded. And Councillor Parish, thank you very much. Are you able to act as chair this afternoon, please?
Yes, I will do it.
Thanks very much. I'll wait for you to come up then.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the planning meeting of 15th of December. I'd like to remind you that we are being webcasted. Do you say webcasted or casting? Anyway, we're on the webcast. Could you all speak into your microphones, please, and turn any mobile phones off? Before I start the agenda, I believe item 9 has been deferred. So if you'd like to make a note of that. I'd like to ask, before we start, I'd like to ask the officers to introduce themselves. Can we start on my far right, please?
Thank you, Chair. Tim James, I'm the Assistant Chief Legal Officer. Thank you.
Rachel Beale, Clerk to the Committee.
Richard Lewis, Head of Development Management.
Norman Jones, Team Leader, Applications Development Management.
Claire Hall, Senior Planner, Development Management.
Henrietta Lucas, Senior Environmental Projects Officer with Regeneration.
Rebecca McAndrew, Principal Planner, Development Management.
Thank you very much. Right, we'll start the agenda. Item 1, attendance and apologies. Are there any apologies?
We've received apologies from Councillors Brian Morby, Ron Burnett, Nigel Davis and Wayne Tomlinson.
Thank you. Are there any other apologies that members know about? No? Right. We go to item 2, declarations of interest. We go to our legal advisor, Tim James.
Thank you, Chair. Quite a few declarations I'm aware of, and I'll go through them member by member if I may. In each case, these, I'm instructed, are personal only interests rather than personal and prejudicial. Councillor Ashley, if I can begin with you, please. I understand you wish to declare a personal only interest in the following applications, planning applications, numbers 4, 5, 6 and 11. 4, 5 and 6 because you're a member of Torvine Friends of the Earth who were consulted on those applications. Is that correct, Councillor Ashley?
Correct.
Thank you. And then application 11, which is the matter at Pont Newydd, Cwmbran, personal only interest in relation to that matter because you're a member of Cwmbran Community Council who were consulted on the application. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. And then Councillor Taylor, in relation to applications 5 and 6 on the list, these are both Pontypool Community Council matters where the Community Council was consulted. On that basis, I understand you wish to declare a personal only interest. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. James.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Chair, I believe you're in the same position in relation to those applications, numbers 4 and 5, where Pontypool Community Council were consulted. Personal only interest. Is that correct, Chair?
5 and 6, actually.
5 and 6, beg your pardon.
Yes, that's correct.
So numbers 5 and number 6. Thank you, Chair. Councillor Furzer, there are 3 applications on the list, numbers
Yeah, that's correct.
To record the declarations in the relevant register, which is going around with the attendance register. And if there are any other queries or issues about declarations, then I'll take those now or as they arise. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go on to item 3, minutes of planning meeting held on the 17th of November. It's on pages 5 to 14. Page 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. Are they a correct record?
Move those minutes, Chair.
Thank you. Seconder, thank you. Are there any queries or comments members would like to make about the minutes? No? Right, thank you. We'll go on to the next item, which is the first planning application. It's planning application number 15P00434, and it's for installation and operation of a solar farm and associated infrastructure, including PV panels, mounting frames, inverter transformer, pole-mounted CCTV cameras and fence at Court Hentless Farm, Cwm Lane, Hentless, Cwmbran. And it's a full planning application. There was a site visit on the 3rd of November, and this application is on pages 15 to 16, and there's going to be a presentation. Claire Hall is going to take us through it, so if you'd like to go through it. Claire, thank you.
Okay, members are asked to note this is the application site in red. This is the Court Hentless farmhouse and associated buildings as referred to in the report. As you can see, the access goes through the farm into the adjoining fields. This is actually the Torvine administrative boundary with the neighbouring authority. The public right-of-way actually goes through the site partly there, so it's this part of access where the footpath 23 runs through and then alongside, just to give you a bit of illustration to the content of the report. This is the site layout. Like again, so taking back to that last slide, the right-of-way comes through here. So there are no actual physical developments on the line of the right-of-way, but clearly there will be some impact on that right-of-way at the time of construction and decommissioning stages, where the equipment is being set up and ultimately removed. These are what the panels look like, 2.5 metres high in staggered rows across the fields. And again, the administrative boundary was down this end. The listed buildings were in this corner here. This is a typical fencing that would be around the perimeter. It's a sort of deer-proof sort of fence, just to keep out access onto the area of the solar panels themselves. There's ancillary equipment, inverters and cabins being put around near to the entrance for distributor network operators to come and maintain, etc., and CCTV poles for security. Some of the photo montages that were submitted with the application to give members an idea of the impact on the landscape. This is a view from Tumbalam. The site is actually behind this belt of trees here. This is a much closer view. This is the right-of-way, so it goes immediately alongside the field where the panels are to be located, and this is a view from the right-of-way on the other side looking back towards the east. Members can quite see this, but this is a photo montage of it in future years. So there's this sort of blue element to the landscape that's referred to in the report. Obviously, the green fields at the moment, but with the equipment on them, there will be a change to the character and the appearance of those fields in the landscape. And this is a photo montage from the first year, and then from year 5 as the hedgerows start to grow up. But you clearly will still see the solar farms in the landscape. It's not going to be hidden from view by any means. Again, difficult to see, but these sort of blue hues here are the solar farms. This is the fence, proposed fence, and this is it in year 5 with a hedgerow established. So just to give members an idea how the landscape will change gradually over time, bearing in mind that the development is predicted for 30 years. The application site up here, okay. Tumbalam, just for reference for those last pictures, is roughly here. So you were looking back that way. These are the trees in between. This is the proposed route for construction vehicles and what have you. So they're coming up through Newport along those same country lanes that members who were on the site visit will have known what they're like. They're quite narrow, quite windy. But the report obviously highlights the mitigations in place to control that in terms of number of vehicle movements and hours at which deliveries can be happening, particularly to avoid school peak times. One of the issues in the report and the objections relates to the POC, the point of connection, which is where the grid operator connects the solar farm and the electricity that's converted to the national grid. This is Mountain Road, which is actually not in Torfaen, it's actually in Caerphilly County Borough, and Caerphilly County Borough Council were consulted on the application. The point of contact itself, point of connection itself, is actually not part of the planning application. If members were minded to approve the planning application for the development, the network provider would actually have permitted development rights to carry out those point of connection works off-site to link it up to the national grid. But I thought it's important just to bear in mind, members know where the disruption is likely to be, albeit your officers think that's a short term during the sort of construction and decommissioning phases in particular. And this is the listed building, which is subject to the report. It's a medieval farmhouse with attached long barn. It needs a bit of TLC. Members, again, who were on the site visit would have seen that. There have been some unauthorised works done to it, which the council have granted a listed building consent to remedy. There has been an issue with the owner's financing of the works, which are quite extensive. The whole thing being re-roofed in natural slate, for example, the concrete render being removed, replaced with lime wash render, complete new windows, timber, oak beams, you name it, all quite expensive. And unfortunately, much of those works haven't come forward, even though there is a consent for it. One last thing, there are a couple of changes to the report, just to identify. If members will see from page 30 that Gwent Wildlife Trust hadn't responded to the reconsultation at the time of writing the report. They have since confirmed that the revised siting, tree impact plan and reptile method statement that was submitted by the developers is satisfactory. Our own in-house ecologist has confirmed the same, and as a consequence of that, your officers actually are recommending that condition 20, which requires a reptile method statement to be submitted, is actually amended to reflect it should be carried out in accordance with the method statement that we have now since received from the developer. And one final point is on informative note 7, and the list of LDP policies to be taken into account. The S8 is missing, which relates to the planning obligations. We've only referred to the SPG in the report, when really we should be referring to the actual local development plan policy, which that supplementary guidance relates to. And that's it.
Thank you, Claire. Any questions, comments from members? No? Councillor Crickening, Councillor Ashley.
Thank you for the presentation. This is the land at Little Mill Brickworks. that you were showing, which is what confused me just then, because I thought we were talking about Hentlers. Does your... Yes, but the next slide that was up there just now. Is Tumbalam actually shown on that slide?
No, not on this list.
No. So where is Tumbalam in relation to that?
It's sort of this general area, obviously at that higher level.
Right.
Sort of looking back down towards it, on that slide that we saw here.
Right. And where is Newport in relation to that? Off to the right?
Yeah, that's the water there that you see.
So when you're on the top, where they call it looking across to Little Switzerland in Newport, would you be seeing that?
The actual application site is down behind these trees. You would from the other side.
But you would see it from the other side?
Yes.
Yes. Right, thank you.
Councillor Ashley.
That was somewhat my question, because what obviously all the ecological and forest things with the woods, etc., have been answered, which is brilliant. The one aspect I had was visual impact, because when we went up there, it was the middle of a mist, wasn't it? So we couldn't see the impact it had on the landscape, which is the only aspect of these things that seems to worry people. So what Veronica's asked, there's the same question, Little Switzerland, where you can see it, you know, the lakes down in Newport, what you can see from anywhere. From what I can see of it, it's not too bad. Could you take us through what visual impact this thing might have?
If that's okay, if Henrietta can deal with that. She's walked every aspect.
Am I right from here? Yeah, I did walk it. It took me about a whole day. It was a fantastic day when I went up there. I didn't go to the top of Tumbalam, but I did go to the ridge. And you couldn't see it because of the trees that were in the way. Now, I'm not sure whether those trees are due for felling, because some of them, that area has been felled, and they may have gone now. I couldn't see it from the ridge at the time because of the trees. I'm told that you can see it from the top of Tumbalam, is that?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say you will get views, views of this in the wider landscape from a variety of points. We're not going to say that it's hidden, because it isn't. But it's how, we feel that in the context of the, where it is, and the mitigation measures have been put forward, the developers have done a reasonably good job into citing it within that wider landscape, so that the impact over a greater area is minimal.
It's quite a local impact, really, in terms of it's quite significant locally. I couldn't see much impact from a distance, from what I could see, but obviously, the changing colour is the thing I was worried about, that you're going from a green landscape to a more, blue-black landscape, but probably from a distance that probably wouldn't be that significant, but obviously, particularly from Mountain Road, there is quite a big impact at that point. But the trees will screen it, 50% of the year, but obviously in the winter that will be.
That's the mountain view.
Yeah, mountain view is particularly.
It's also true to say you've got a very large barn up there as well, which has also got a fairly large visual impact as well, because that's the one thing I did notice up there. The massive undercover thing is pretty big in its own right, isn't it?
On the farm,
yeah.
Yes. But obviously, I think to me it was the colour that you're changing, the sort of landscape sort of character of it, really.
Right, thank you. Councillor Seaborn, then Councillor Cameron, and Councillor Craiger.
I don't know whether there's going to be any more members wish to ask questions, Chair. Only I was just going to say that I was a member of the site meeting, and the weather was a little bit dowdy, to say the least. But visual impact from Newport, I don't think is going to make much difference. If you look from there down into Newport, you can see windmills and goodness knows what. So it's a little bit mixed. And this sheet that I received in my pigeonhole, it was very useful on about the diversity and the wildlife. And if no other members can speak or any I would like to move the recommendation, subject to the 22 conditions, plus the 106, and the amendments to item 20 on the recommendations.
Right, thank you, Councillor Seaborn. There are 2 members indicated. Did you want to ask questions? Well, you ask your questions first, then we'll see if there's a seconder for Councillor Seaborn's motion.
Thank you. The one thing you say about the blue colour, is that absolutely definite? There is no other colour they can be, so that's it? Because it is quite obtrusive.
We've not discussed alternative colours with the developer. I must confess that the technology will probably allow a variety of things, but as with all technology, it's the sort of volume made that drives the cost down, really. So if this is what's being proposed and we don't have an issue with it, there's no need for officers to be discussing anything else with them.
And the other thing, with it being actually in view from Tumballen, which is quite a unique site, it's not just sort of any old corner of the borough. You know, it is an ancient site. I realise you don't have a right to views, etc., and I presume it works the same way with this, you know. Tumballen doesn't have a right to a perfect view. But are there any planning grounds whatsoever that could be considered as a reason to think again, maybe?
Right, we'll ask the officer's opinion.
Well, almost certainly the setting of the Scheduled Ancient Monument certainly is a material planning consideration of quite significance. The difficulty from the council's point of view is that CADU, who are effectively the custodians of the Scheduled Ancient Monument, have absolutely no issue with this development. You know, they haven't commented on the setting of the Grade 2 listed building, but I am aware that they do have some concerns over that, as is set out in the report. But certainly, I think the setting of the Grade 2 listed building, because of its proximity, is far more tangible for us if we were to be looking to resist the development. The setting of the ancient monument, I think I would struggle with when CADU have concurred with the environmental statement and the contents of that. And you know, they've considered the broader historical landscape, if you like, and it was actually CADU that requested the environmental statement because of their concerns over the cultural heritage of this part of the borough. But the developer has responded to that with a full environmental statement, and CADU's concerns, if they had any, appear to have been addressed.
Are you satisfied with that, Councillor Cameron?
Sorry, can I just ask, the land in question, is it in the ownership of the people who own the listed building?
Yes, it is.
Councillor Crick, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Primarily concerned with access to the site. Is there any way in which the size of the lorries that will need to be used can be reduced so that it doesn't have such an impact? Because those roads are very narrow up there.
The developer has submitted a full construction and traffic management plan with the application, which does look to control size of vehicles and number of vehicle deliveries. So yes, obviously you'll see the comments from our own highways officer, who admittedly has some concerns, as he explained on the site visit, because of the very narrow, very winding nature of these lanes. But there's 2 aspects to whilst we came down to no objection in the end. One is because the impact is quite short term and mainly around the sort of construction and decommissioning stages, as is disruption in every aspect of construction work. And similarly, you know, these lanes do take farm vehicles and the like periodically. So as long as we manage the traffic movements to avoid the peak periods when people are taking children to school, for example, so that residents are not unduly inconvenienced, we felt that overall what was being proposed by the developer was satisfactory mitigation against what will undoubtedly be some short-term inconvenience, but not of a concern in itself to withhold planning permission.
other question I had was with regard to the catchment of the Pantyrios Reservoir and the comment about potential impacts and the raw water quality. It doesn't really define what they are, but what would be an unusual event that might cause some difficulties?
To be honest with you, I think that's Welsh Water issuing their standard advice to developers, really, and encouraging the developer to speak to them to make sure that arrangements are in place. I couldn't tell you what a catastrophic event might be, but obviously they're looking to maintain the purity of the water supply and have that not be affected. You know, the developer has submitted a full hydrology report with their environmental statement, which obviously Welsh Water have looked at and commented on, and they're just reiterating their standard advice and encouraging the developer to have dialogue with them at the various stages of construction and decommissioning, for example.
You satisfied with that reply? Right. Any other questions or comments from members? We'll go back to Councillor Seabone's motion now. Is there a seconder? It's been seconded. Right, we'll vote on it. Those for the application? That's unanimous. So that application has been approved. Thank you. Item 5 is planning application 15P00436, solar farm and associated infrastructure at land south of Little Mill Brickworks. Little Mill, it's Little Mill, it's not Pontypool, is it? This application is on pages 61 to 84, and Norman Jones will give us a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Since the publication of the report, we've received further comments from Natural Resources Wales in terms of additional information that was sent to them in terms of the visual impact and effect on the views on the national park, and also impacts on European protected species. They come back and say, we do not object to the development as submitted. However, they offer the following advice. They've reviewed the additional landscape information, and from that they would suggest suitably worded conditions in terms of submission of landscaping scheme, which we have conditioned, and the submission of an agreement of a landscape and ecological management plan. However, in addition to that, they do suggest that the proposal should be reduced in scale and or relocated onto lower ground in order to minimise the impact in terms of the views from the national park. So that's what they've said in relation to landscape. In relation to the ecological appraisal, again, they've suggested a suitably worded condition be attached to if we are minded to grant permission. Just to take you through the details of the application, it's situated to the south of the former Brickworks site, which is now a recycling centre. We've got the go-karting centre there. This is the railway line to the Midlands. Access is off the trunk road, through past the former Bowls Club, underneath the railway line there, which serves the recycling centre. The proposal is for 10.6 hectares of panels, which will produce 5 megawatts of electricity, which is the equivalent of the ability to serve 1,200 homes. It's situated in the same manner as the previous application, with banks of panels, maximum of 2.5 metres high, driven 1 metre into the ground. Members would have seen the land from the site visit. This is a view looking down the field towards the, I think that's the railway line there, along that bank. That's a view at one of the fields. As you can see, there's wooded surrounds. That's access to the lower part of the site off the access road. And I just take members through the views of what we will proceed. As I said, we've had the comments of Natural Resources. We see from the report Brecon Beacons National Park have objected in terms of the impact from views from the national park. However, this is the existing view. This is the area of the proposal. It'll be viewed, and you can see it indicated there, although it's the area proposed. This is the Mumhyled former Nylon Spinners building. This area is allocated for as a strategic development site. We've got industrial allocated land adjacent to the railway, and so clearly there will be an impact as we recognise in the report. However, we consider that the views, the impact on the views is not so critical in this location, that the benefit of this application in terms of supporting renewable energy is worthwhile, and the impact is not so critical as to refuse planning permission in this case. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Ashley.
I noticed a bit, having been on the visit, I noticed a bit about, I don't know, is it the Berthin Brook? It's actually a tributary of the Usk, if you look on the map, and it runs into, there's some watercourse things about contaminated discharge. I mean, it actually runs through the RAF site, if I remember rightly, doesn't it? So it's got some, are you having some talks about that? As a condition, having some conditions about that. The other thing was the impact survey. I'm not quite clear whether we got anything on there or not in terms of newts, lizards, various other bits and pieces.
In terms of the Berthin Brook, we've added an advice note highlighting that issue from the comments of Natural Resources Wales, and that is in terms of potential pollution to the Berthin Brook, so the developers will be aware of that. And in terms of we're requiring an ecological management plan or environmental management plan in accordance with the recommendations of their ecological report, and that is acceptable to us. So that is the subject of a condition.
Councillor Seaborn.
Yes, Chair. I just want a little bit of clarity, please. Is this close to where, if I could ask Richard, the relocation of Abergavenny cattle market, is this close to where that was? Because we had a site meeting back in 2011, was it?
Yes, it is, yeah. The railway line, you know where the railway line is there. It's the other side of the railway line, Norman, isn't it? If perhaps you can point it out.
That's the there.
Yeah, where the blue line is, where Norman's indicated, that was the cattle market site, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Crick.
Only the comment, Chair, that I also attended the site meeting, and I did feel that it was a very discreet site, and possibly one of the ones that would be the least noticeable of those that we've been presented with to date. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Crick. Councillor Ashley?
Very quickly, I thought it was an incredibly discreet site, to be quite honest. If you stood on top of Folly Tower, you might just see it.
Right. Yeah. Did you want to comment?
It will be seen in the landscape. There's no doubt about that from certain views. However, we don't think that impact is so significant that to warrant refusal.
Any other questions, comments? Would somebody like to bring? Councillor Waite?
I'd like to move the application, Madam Chair, with all the recommendations.
Right, thank you for that. Is there a seconder to that? Oh, about 4 seconders. I think Councillor Cameron was the first. Right, we'll go into a vote then. Those for the application, which is unanimous. Thank you. That application has been approved. Thank you. Right. The chairman of the committee has come. I don't know whether he wants to take over the chair. You don't. All right. I'll carry on then. But a bad day, have you? Oh, I know. Yes, I know you've got a very bad cold. Okay, then. Right, we go on to item 6, and it's planning application 15P00437. And it's solar farm and associated infrastructure at land east of Panteg Way. It's on pages 85 to 104. And there was a site visit on the 2nd of December, and I believe Norman's going to give us a presentation on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. You'll see from the report that's the plan which indicated the application site boundaries. However, the actual development area is significantly smaller than that. Basically, it's the field areas around Pimlico area, and it's the more, if you like, upper levels, the flatter areas, not leading down the slope towards the Avon Lloyd. So just to give members that context. Again, it's this is a 2 megawatt proposal, which would be the equivalent of generating energy for approximately 480 homes. The same system, 2.5 metre high array of panels. The site would be, again, surrounded by a secure fence with security cameras. The site will be viewed from distant views from across the valley. They will be seen from when viewed from the higher levels in Griffithstown, South Sebastopol, but however it's a relatively flat area, and those won't be of significant height. Again, we've got no objection in terms of this from a highway, a visual impact grounds. There's the landscape quality there is not so critical that we would object to it. There's, in terms of the close views, they're fairly well screened from New Inn. There are existing hedgerows and tree belts, and the panels will be set off those. So therefore we're recommending approval again on this one.
Thank you. Right, it's over to members. Councillor Seaborn.
If I could just ask about the, on page 94 of the report, it says ecological appraisal. There's no real objections, but I was just wondering whether, if I could ask Norman, that the wildlife would have the same protection as it's got here, and be able to roam, and birds still feed, nest and underneath on the wildlife.
In terms of our ecologists, they've no objection to the proposal. Again, they're recommending an ecological management plan to be incorporated. However, there's nothing. The fields will be available for grazing, and again, wildlife. The hedgerows shouldn't be disturbed by that. So there's nothing in terms of protected species that is found to be on this site that we couldn't cater for in an ecological management plan.
Councillor Ashley.
Thank you for that, Norman. It's just, could we have an impact, even, within that plan, to see what impact there is, because it's always useful as we've got the opportunity and the plan.
In terms of those...
Sorry, it's always useful to know what's on there.
Yes.
As we're doing it, you might as well have it.
Yeah, in terms of in terms of the ecological comments, no badger sets were discovered, and they note that there's potential for Japanese knotweed, so that they require an ecological statement, method statement to deal with that. And then there's a requirement for a programme of ecological monitoring. The report, in terms of Gwent Wildlife, in terms of their comments, they welcome the proposed measures to protect breeding birds and bats. So those are within the site, or do use the hedgerows within the sites. So those would be protected, and there's nothing from the reports that would suggest that bats would be adversely impacted by solar farms in general. And then in terms of there's also potential for reptiles and amphibians, subject to the findings of the reptile survey. Gwent Wildlife would expect a method statement on how those would be protected during construction. So all that can be taken care of in terms of the ecological management plan.
Did you say that, because we didn't go down there, is the Avon Lloyd the sort of western boundary of this site?
It's the if I take you back to the site plan, the Avon Lloyd is at a lower level there, so you've got that gap between the developable area and the field as it slopes down to the Avon Lloyd. So that's the Avon Lloyd there, and the area for the siting of the panels as proposed, just either side of the Pimlico building.
There is somewhat of a wildlife corridor down there for anybody that sits down there.
Yeah.
You satisfied with that? Yeah. Right. Any other questions from members? If there are no other questions, would somebody like to move? Stuart? Is there a seconder? Yes, it's been seconded. Right, we are voting now to approve this application. Shall we vote now? Right. Right, again, unanimous. That application has been approved. We've gone to item 7, planning application 15P 00613. Proposed change of use of former doctor's surgery to offices and ancillary accommodation at former doctor's surgery, Church Road, Blaenavon, and it's on pages 105 to 112. And there's no presentation with this application, so are there any questions from members or comments? No? Are you ready to... A motion, somebody? Would the Blaenavon member like to? Thank you very much. And there's a seconder, Councillor Taylor. Right, we'll vote on that then. That's unanimous again. So this application has been approved as well. Right. Next item is item 8. Planning application 15P 006 148, demolition of existing buildings and erection of replacement food production unit with first floor offices, new roofing and wall cladding to existing, and new access and parking at Unit 7, Gilchrist Thomas Industrial Estate, Blaenavon. It's, oh, this one's been deferred, is it? No, the next one's deferred. I was looking at the wrong thing. I shouldn't have written it down there. I think, I'm reading all this out and it's been deferred, but it's not. It's the next one. It's on pages 113 to 126. And Rebecca McAndrew is going to give a presentation.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Application relates to an existing industrial site on the Gilchrist Thomas Estate in the World Heritage Site, Blaenavon. The building suffered extreme fire damage in July 2015 of this year, which shut the factory down. You can see that the fire was in this element of the building. The remaining part of this rear extension bit is retained, but this is the main area which was damaged and it's been out of production, the site, since that point. Permission is sought to remove all these temporary buildings that are around, or previously around this structure, and to rebuild this part of the factory, and then to also renovate and improve the rear part of the building. If you turn to page 114 of the report, there's some measurements there in terms of size of the proposal. The applicant has submitted further information just to clarify the exact measurements in that report there. So this part of the building here, where the new building's going in, will be increased in height by 4 metres. That's at the bottom of the page. And then the overall floor space of the factory would be 5,563 square metres. In the report it says 43338, compared to the previous, and then it should say 4,059 square metres. So there's a slight increase in the overall footprint of the building, but that additional floor space is coming from a mezzanine floor, which would be inserted into the upper area of that extension. So here you go. So this is the rear part of the building that you saw there that has remained intact through the fire. This is the new extension to the front here, which would go there, and then this bit here is where all those ad hoc temporary buildings were, so that would connect onto it. And then there's also a loading bay to go into the back. So this is seeing it from the other side. This is the front elevation of the building, so you can see here that glazing's being added, different colour steel to try and improve the quality of the building as well through this development. Is seen, those unfortunate that the building suffered the fire, this is seen as an opportunity to expand and improve this existing building. And that's the rear delivery area, which is this bit here, which would go off the back. I'll just talk through some of the issues. So the Coal Authority originally objected to the application. There's an adit which runs under part of the site, which links into the wider Big Pit mine. But this is believed to be around 20 metres below the surface, below the factory. So the foundations for the factory building that's being constructed have been calculated with that in mind. So the National Museum for Wales, who run Big Pit, are happy with the proposal on that basis. They haven't raised any objections. Since the agenda was published, the Coal Authority have now confirmed that they removed their objection. So they say the Coal Authority is satisfied that the proposed foundation design, as detailed in the structural calculations adit assessment, to mitigate the risk proposed by coal mining legacy is appropriate. The Coal Authority therefore withdraws its objection to the proposed development. So the Coal Authority and the National Museum for Wales, and we're satisfied that that issue's been addressed. If I just go, actually, the other issue really is the impact, the visual impact of the proposed development on the environment. This is a World Heritage Site, so views into the site are quite important. The existing building, you can see there, was quite prominent because they had this blue and red colour scheme, which when you stood in the areas around the site was quite prominent. So the proposed scheme has now been amended to include the more muted grey colours, and although the building will go up by about 4 metres, the new bit, the visual impact would be reduced by that more muted colour, and it sits quite comfortably, we think, within the landscape. I think Doncaster is behind, which is grey, and so that's seen as a benefit. The authority's conservation officer and the representative for ICOMOS have both raised no objections to the proposal on this basis, and in terms of visual impact is seen as an improvement on the previous situation. Now we come on to this. There was an existing problem in the area with on-street parking. The original factory had very few spaces within the site to accommodate workers. So this is a local authority-owned car park, and there was a problem with on-street parking, and this car park gets full. And we've actually received an objection from a local firm with an observation saying actually there were problems with on-street parking, which we were aware of. So as part of this scheme, we've seen it as quite important to make sure that parking spaces within the site are provided to accommodate staff. So this scheme provides 77 spaces within the site. The actual standard requirement would be 54, so there's an over-provision of parking here, which we welcome, and the highways officers for the authority are happy with this and don't object to the application on this basis. So, in conclusion, this is quite a major employer for the area, and we're keen for them to be back up and running in business soon. The design of the building and the visual impact on the landscape is improved on the previous situation, and of course the parking situation's improved as well, so we're recommending approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Any questions? No? Yeah, yes, of course, yes, yeah. Is there a seconder? Yes, loads of seconders. Right, we'll vote on that then. That's another unanimous application. The application has been approved. Agenda item 9, as I said, is deferred. We go to item 10. Which is planning application 15P 00675, two-storey rear extension at 82 King Street, Blaenavon, and is on pages 135 to 140. And this has only come before us because the applicant is a member of staff. So I don't think there's need for a presentation. No need for a presentation. It would have gone through on delegated decisions, would it, if it hadn't been a member of staff applying. So could I have a motion? Move. Second. Thank you. We vote on it, please. Unanimous again. That application has been approved. So we go to application 11. Find it right. Application 15/P/00710, conversion of existing public house into single dwelling with new extension to first floor at rear of building at Cross Keys Inn, 53 5 Locks Road, Pontnewydd, Cwmbran. It's on pages 141 to 156. And there was a site visit on the 2nd of December, and Rebecca is going to give us a presentation on this. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Chair. The application is for the change of a public house into a 4-bedroom property, a dwelling. The property dates from the 1800s. It was extensively renovated, we think, in the mid-20th century, and it's located within the Monmouthshire and Brecon Canal Conservation Area. So here's the site layout. You can see there's the canal bank at the side. This is the proposed layout. So access would be into the site off Five Locks Road. 3 car parking spaces would be retained for the proposed dwelling. And then sort of landscaping around. The relationship between the proposed dwelling and the canal's an important consideration, and we were quite keen to make sure that any boundary treatments between the two reflected the historic environment. So the applicants proposed to put stock fencing with native hedgerows, which would be quite a soft landscaping in relation to that canal. The conservation area boundary actually goes around the outside of the site there. So this is the photos of the existing pub. It closed in May last year. You can see the sort of 1960s extension here. This main vehicle access off Five Locks Road, and this is the rear access, the rear of the building. And you'll note this single-storey rear extension as part of the proposal would involve removing that extension and building a smaller footprint 2-storey extension across the back of the property. I'll show you those now. So here's the drawing. The general sort of renovation of the front. You could see the 2-storey extension coming out there, and that's flat bit coming out there is the existing rear single-storey extension, so that's seen as an improvement. Just general improvements to the building. The key issue which has come out of this application is the loss of the pub as a community facility. The applicant submitted various information in support of the development in relation to this, and they've noted that there are 11 other pubs within the 1-mile walking distance of the property. And they've also submitted accounts to demonstrate that the public house is unviable in its current form. The accounts submitted were over a period of 9 years, and I think 4 of those years showed a loss and 5 showed minimal profits. We've received objections to the proposal from the authority's economy and renewal team, and there's the Canal Trust as well, and they object on the basis that this building could actually offer a future opportunity for the regeneration of the canal. But unfortunately these plans are not that well developed at the moment, so it would be unreasonable for us to refuse consent on that basis, and we have to consider the proposal in front of us today. Another issue that's arisen since the agenda's gone to print is that the council agreed this morning to increase the threshold for requiring developers to make Section 106 contributions. So previously, if a site was over 0.1 hectares, the affordable housing, the contributions would have kicked in, but that's now been raised to 0.33 hectares. So on the basis of that policy change, there's no requirement for a Section 106 contribution for this scheme. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Any questions? Councillor Ashley?
You brought up the lack of amenity. Would you agree with the applicant's view on that?
The lack of amenity?
Yeah, you brought up that issue because we obviously have had people bringing that up as an objection. They unfortunately didn't bring it to this committee, but there certainly were people saying that they felt that even though that they brought that count up about local pubs and clubs, that they used that place regularly, whether they were profitable or not, they were keen on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate to lose a pub within an area. We've got that policy CF3 which sets out criteria which the applicants have to consider. We have to consider within the development. So there was another issue in terms of the viability of it, because I think it was going to cost about £20,000 to install a commercial gas facility, and a lot more to install a commercial kitchen. So we're quite a convincing argument on this basis has been put in, and it would be unreasonable for us to insist on the maintenance of the pub there on that basis, I would say.
Because one of the things that people they have, obviously a lot of people have much loved pubs, or pubs in general. There's a lot of pubs disappearing in this area, and obviously to see this go is quite a wrench for locals.
Yeah, I mean, I'm personally aware of someone who used to drink there, and I said, oh, what's he doing now? He walks down the bottom bridge, so there are pubs that people can walk to. It's unfortunate, but it'll be nice to see this building, renovated and brought back into use, I think.
Councillor Morby.
The building is, as it's said in the report, in a conservation area. It's in an area where we hope as a council to develop the canal facilities. We hope to open up the canal. You understand what the ambition is, to have it navigable from Brooklyn down to Newport. That requires imaginative thinking. It requires, I think, preservation of a conservation area. It requires us to stick to our principles, in my view, and I should be voting against approval of this on the basis that I think it would be better if we agreed not to allow this, on the basis of the future plans we have for the area, which could lead to an alternative use for this particular facility. I appreciate I'm not asking anybody else to support me, because you've got an obligation to protect the council's interest, and we may well lose the appeal. But it's a matter of principle for me, and I shall be voting against.
Right, thank you for that, Councillor. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. I think it's very difficult to say to somebody, in view of the fact that pubs are closing around us because of not being viable, I think it's very difficult to say to somebody, you've got to keep it as a pub until such time as it might be viable, because we intend to do something to the canal. That could be a long time ahead.
Yes, I have to agree with you there. I mean, buildings deteriorate when they're not lived in or used. So it is a difficult situation, but I do understand Councillor Morby's, you feel the same, do you? Yes, yeah. Right. Are there any other questions? Yeah, Rebecca, you want to come in?
Just coming back in response to Councillor Morby's comments, policy T2 with the local development plan seeks to safeguard the canal from development that could prejudice its reopening. We're saying the proposed change of use wouldn't prejudice its reopening. In an ideal world, it would be nice to retain the pub and have that there on the banks of the canal, which will hopefully one day be navigable, but we have to look at what's in front of us now, and unfortunately it may be an opportunity missed.
Councillor Crick.
Thank you, Chair. I think from what little I know of the pub, and that's from passing it as one goes around Cwmbran, I would say that whilst I appreciate the area it's in, it's not a building that stands out at the moment of being of particular historical input to that area, and I think providing whatever is done to it is sympathetic. I would have, and appreciating the present economic climate, particularly with regard to public houses, I would have no objection to this.
Was that are you moving it? Or?
I will move in that case the recommendation to approve, subject to the conditions which are laid out. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Cameron and Councillor Seaborn. Right, we'll vote on that now then, the officer's recommendation. Seven for, those against? 3 against, thank you. That application has, and 1 abstention? Yeah, okay then. That application has been approved, thank you. Right, that concludes the planning applications. The date of the next meeting is Tuesday, 19th of January, and I'd like to wish you all a very happy Christmas and hope your 2016 is very peaceful. Thank you for your attendance.